So maybe you are not so lucky, you always have a Sifu teaching you one-on-one. One of the most common questions that we get from my channel is, Dan, Steve Octavio, I'm training on my own. There's no dojo in my school. I don't have a training buddy. How can I practice and learn martial art from my home by myself? What do I do? So let me give you 3 tips today. Tip number 1, I think the biggest problem is training on your own is you don't get feedback from an instructor, right? So you have to kind of learn how to self-correct. So watching videos, and that's why we make these videos for you, so you can follow along. You want to watch it multiple times to learn the move. And then to make sure you do the move correctly, the first thing we can do is, Sifu, practice in front of the mirror, correct?
Yeah, mirror is a great way to start. I mean, if you don't know how you're structurally moving your body, you gotta, especially if you're watching our videos and you go in and just scroll through, you can see it, try to imitate it, put the mirror in front of you and put the video up and just follow along.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a great way. And that's why we're releasing videos, is for you to learn. But I mean, you won't get the feedback, you're right, this is what you were saying. But the mirror is a great way to start.
The mirror, it's if you watch it, if you are kind of critical, right? No delusional. You think you're better than you think.
Right.
But actually look at the mirror, look at your stance, look at your center line. Okay, this is off, or it's my elbow in, or all these things. It will teach you a lot. So I think practice in front of the mirror. That's tip number 1. Number 2 is if you don't have a training buddy and you don't have someone to hold a pad or to let you hit something, is to get a piece of equipment. Very often, I mean, Sifu, I think is the same way. We train on our own. You don't always have a training buddy. Get some kind of a heavy bag, or get a bob, right? Get a dummy or a wooden dummy, whatever it is to practice, right?
Yeah, the bob, I think, is probably best. The heavy bag is quite heavy. If you're hitting it wrong, you might end up hurting your wrist. That's why it's probably good to get the gloves with the strap, and where you can brace that wrist. And because if you're throwing full hard on punch and you don't even know how much you're delivering, you can practically crack your wrist or hurt your shoulder or do something incorrectly.
Yeah.
So the bob actually kind of gives you a little bit more.
And then it's got the head movement, and it feels a little bit more like real,
something
right?
with springs in it. Yeah, I think that'd be best for you. But yeah, that's about the only thing I can really recommend if you're doing this on your own.
You know you are an obsessive martial artist when you have all kinds of like weird equipments at home. You hang a piece of paper, you got like a ball here hanging and you're hitting, right? That's kind of what happens. And you got something in your backyard like this sandbag. That's when you know a serious martial artist, right? All kinds of stuff. You go to Home Depot, you try to find an iron bar thing to hit your forearm with.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the second tip. Practice, get some equipment. Start with just 1 or 2. You don't need to go crazy with equipment. And the third thing is anyone can work on, which is something I learned from Sifu. It's you work on your physical ability, right? Doing the push-up. Because the first time I met Sifu, I said, Sifu, how do I develop explosive power? Because I was expecting some, this is gonna be good. Some like earth-shattering answer. You know what he said? Push-up. Then do some push-up. I said, what? Yep. And then he showed me like 10 different ways of doing the push-up. I said, okay. But that's it, right?
You have to practice yourself. I think the biggest suggestion I can give everybody out there, especially if you're trying to follow Bruce Lee, I know everybody is inspired by him and they want to do exactly what he did. To be honest with you, he was an entirely different individual. You're going to be someone different. You're going to have to work on yourself first. And the basics are the push-ups, the squats,
and we should read the spring, right?
the sprinting, the running, especially if you're young, run, and do all kinds of activity stuff. I mean, the great players like, I'd say football in Europe or soccer here in the US, those guys are very physically athletic. I mean, watch the way you're training too, because if you overtrain, that's where you start to kill your adrenals. So you have to watch what you eat, you have to watch how you're training, how much time you're spending on it. There's all kinds of training regimens that we can provide at a future date. But again, biggest suggestion is to start small. Don't go in there and start thinking, all right, I'm gonna be able to split this paper. Hold on, I'm gonna practice this until I split this paper. It has nothing to do with that. It's about how much focus and intent you have through the entire training process.
Yeah, and that gives you, if you I can split that piece of paper, it gives you a false sense of confidence, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, best you want to have some kind of training buddy, and you want to have some kind of seafood. There's nothing can replace that. Like we're giving you 3 tips where you absolutely cannot find an instructor in your town, and you cannot always travel. Maybe you don't have that privilege. It's start somewhere, anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, when you get to a point where you could definitely find an instructor, that's the best way to go. Also, make sure you check out Sifu's. I'll put a link at the bottom that you want to learn from him and the other virtual training. Do that. Start with that. No excuse. It's not, I cannot find a school, so I don't train. That's nothing more than excuse, right?
Yeah.
So you can start something today.
Yeah.
Yeah, and make sure you go to watch our other GKD videos. We have a lot of videos. Watch, practice in front of the mirror. Make sure you also find a couple pieces of equipment, and then train, get fit. So, I mean, with me, I'm busy, I've got running businesses, but I still got to put in the time and you got to train.